Have you ever finished a great book, closed your laptop after watching another motivational video, and told yourself tomorrow will be different, only to wake up and do exactly what you did yesterday? Maybe the problem isn't that you don't know enough. Maybe you've been waiting to feel ready instead of simply beginning. So today, don't try to change your whole life. Just take one small step before this day ends. And whenever you find yourself stuck between knowing and doing again, come back to this video. It will still be here. Chapter 1. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. How many times have you said these words to yourself? I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'll wake up earlier. Tomorrow, I'll exercise. Tomorrow, I'll finally write that first page. Tomorrow, I'll make the phone call. Tomorrow, I'll begin the life I keep imagining. The strange thing is that tomorrow always feels reasonable. It sounds responsible. It sounds patient. It even sounds wise. But if you look closely, tomorrow has become the safest hiding place for fear. That's the first truth you need to understand. Most people are not waiting for the right time. They're waiting for the absence of discomfort. And that moment never arrives. You have a choice. You can continue believing that one day you'll suddenly wake up full of confidence, clarity, and motivation, or you can recognize that confidence is usually the result of action, not the requirement for it. That's the key. The greatest projects in history were not started by people who felt completely prepared. They were started by people who decided that uncertainty was no longer an excuse. Think about a child learning to walk. The child doesn't study walking for 6 months before taking the first step. They don't wait until every movement is perfect. They stand, they fall, they stand again, they fall again. Eventually, walking becomes effortless. Why? Because movement came before mastery. Yet somewhere along the way, we forgot this lesson. As adults, we expect ourselves to feel ready before we begin. We convince ourselves that one more book, one more course, one more week of planning will eliminate uncertainty. But preparation has a hidden danger. Preparation feels productive. Planning feels productive. Research feels productive. Talking about your goals feels productive. None of them are the same as doing the work. There's a subtle trap here. Your brain often rewards you for thinking about progress almost as much as making progress. You imagine yourself succeeding. You picture the finished result. You organize your ideas. And for a moment, your mind experiences a small sense of satisfaction. That satisfaction becomes dangerous because it tricks you into believing you've moved forward. You haven't. You've only imagined moving forward. It's not about information. It's about execution. That's the difference. Look around. Millions of people know they should sleep more. They don't. Millions know they should exercise. They don't. Millions know they should spend less money than they earn. They don't. Millions know they should put their phones away and focus. They don't. Knowledge has never been the scarce resource. Action is. You have a choice. You can spend another year collecting advice, or you can spend today collecting evidence that you are someone who acts. Notice the difference. Advice changes your mind. Evidence changes your identity. Every action you complete becomes proof. Proof that you can keep your word. Proof that you can finish difficult things. Proof that you are becoming someone different. That is why one small action is more powerful than 100 perfect ideas. Imagine two people. The first spends 6 months designing the perfect workout plan. The second puts on a pair of shoes and walks for 15 minutes every evening. At first, the planner appears more serious. But after 1 year, the walker has transformed. The planner has accumulated notes. One collected information, the other collected evidence. That's the key. Your identity is built from evidence, not intentions. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, even a tiny one, something changes inside you. You begin trusting yourself, and self-trust is one of the rarest forms of confidence. Not because someone praised you, not because others believed in you, because you believed your own actions. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission to begin before you're ready. You don't need permission to make imperfect progress. You don't need permission to be a beginner. Waiting for permission is simply another version of waiting for the perfect moment. And the perfect moment has never existed. Think about every meaningful decision in your own life: moving to a new city, starting a relationship, changing careers, learning a skill, speaking in public. None of those moments arrived wrapped in certainty. They arrived wrapped in doubt. The people who changed their lives were not fearless. They simply refused to let fear make the final decision. That's an important distinction. Fear is not the enemy. Obedience to fear is. It's not about fear, it's about discipline. Discipline says, I hear the fear, but I'm moving anyway. Discipline says, I don't need perfect conditions. Discipline says, one step today is enough. That single step matters more than you think, because action creates momentum. Momentum changes emotion. Emotion reinforces action. Most people believe motivation comes first. Reality often works in reverse. Action creates motivation. Think back to a time when you didn't want to do something. Exercise, cleaning your room, writing an email, studying. Once you started, something shifted. The resistance became smaller. The task became easier. The hardest part wasn't the work. The hardest part was beginning. That's why the first minute matters more than the first hour. Reduce the first step until it becomes impossible to avoid. Instead of promising yourself 1 hour of reading, read 1 page. Instead of promising yourself a perfect workout, do 5 push-ups. Instead of writing an entire chapter, write 1 paragraph. Instead of changing your life today, change your next decision. Because your life is nothing more than your decisions repeated over time. You have a choice. Right now. Not tomorrow, not next Monday, not next month. Now. Choose movement over hesitation. Choose evidence over intention. Choose discipline over comfort. Every small action sends a message to your mind. I am someone who begins. Repeat that often enough, and beginning becomes part of who you are. Don't wait to feel ready. Start, and readiness will follow. Read those words again. Don't wait to feel ready. Start, and readiness will follow. That sentence is simple, but it contains a truth that separates dreamers from builders. The dreamer waits for certainty. The builder creates certainty through action. Today, you decide which one you will become. Because every meaningful transformation starts the same way, not with perfect timing, not with perfect confidence, but with one imperfect step taken anyway. You have taken the first step by listening this far. Now it's time to take the next one in your own life. You stopped waiting for the perfect moment. But beginning is only the first gravity. The real transformation comes from showing up again tomorrow and the day after that. So let's continue. Chapter 2. Build momentum with small actions. The biggest mistake people make after deciding to change their lives is believing they need to make a massive change immediately. They decide that tomorrow they will wake up at 5 in the morning, exercise for 2 hours, read 50 pages, meditate, journal, work on their side business, eat perfectly, stay disciplined all day, and for one day, maybe two, they succeed. Then life happens. They miss one morning, then another. Soon the entire plan disappears, not because they were weak, because they confused intensity with consistency. Those are not the same thing. Intensity impresses people. Consistency transforms people. That's the difference. Look at nature. A river does not cut through rock because it is powerful for one afternoon. It shapes mountains because it never stops flowing. A tree does not become strong because it grows 3 feet in 1 week. It grows a little every day. The sunrise does not ask whether it feels motivated. It simply arrives every single morning. That is how extraordinary things are built, not through dramatic effort, through repeated effort. Small actions, repeated daily, create extraordinary change. Read those words slowly. Small actions, repeated daily, create extraordinary change. That sentence may sound simple, but it describes almost every meaningful success story you have ever admired. When you see someone who speaks with confidence, you are seeing thousands of conversations you never witnessed. When you admire an athlete, you are looking at years of ordinary workouts that nobody applauded. When you read a great book, you are reading the result of hundreds of days when the author sat down to write, even when nothing felt inspired. The world celebrates the outcome. Life rewards the repetition. That's the key. People often ask, how do I stay motivated? The better question is, how do I make quitting more difficult than continuing? Because motivation comes and goes. Systems remain. Habits remain. Identity remains. You have a choice. You can depend on your emotions, or you can depend on your routines. One will disappoint you. The other will quietly change your life. Imagine pushing a heavy car that is stopped in the middle of the road. The first few seconds are the hardest. It barely moves. Every muscle strains. You wonder if it's even worth trying. Then something happens. The wheels begin to turn. Slowly at first, then a little faster. Eventually, the same car that refused to move now carries its own momentum. Life works the same way. Beginning is difficult. Continuing becomes easier. Momentum is invisible while it is being created, but once it exists, it carries you farther than motivation ever could. That's why the first step should never be intimidating. Reduce it. Make it smaller. Then make it smaller again. Want to read more? Read 1 page. Want to exercise? Put on your shoes. Want to write? Open the document and write 1 sentence. It sounds almost too easy. Good, because easy things get done, and completed actions always beat ambitious intentions. Many people fail because they make the starting line too far away. They believe every effort has to be impressive. It doesn't. It only has to happen. It's not about perfection. It's about repetition. Every time you repeat a positive action, no matter how small, you are casting a vote for the person you want to become. James Clear famously described habits as votes for your identity. Ancient philosophers understood the same principle long before modern psychology gave it a name. You become what you repeatedly do. Not occasionally, repeatedly. If every evening you spend 10 minutes reading, you become a reader. If every morning you move your body, you become someone who exercises. If every day you write a paragraph, you become a writer. Identity is not announced. Identity is accumulated, one action at a time. Small actions, repeated daily, create extraordinary change. The problem is that most people cannot see change while it is happening. This is where they give up. Think about planting a seed. On the first day, nothing appears. After 1 week, still nothing. 2 weeks, nothing. If you judged the seed by what you could see, you would believe nothing was happening beneath the soil. But the roots are growing where your eyes cannot reach. The most important work is invisible. Your discipline works exactly the same way. The first week, you don't feel different. The second week, your life looks almost the same. The first month, nobody notices. Your friends don't compliment you. Your family doesn't see a dramatic change. You begin wondering whether your effort matters. It does. Because transformation always happens twice. First internally, then externally. First beneath the surface, then in plain sight. People only celebrate the second part. They rarely appreciate the first. That's why patience is part of discipline. You don't need immediate proof. You need continued practice. You have a choice. You can quit because the results are invisible. Or you can trust that invisible progress eventually becomes undeniable. Every remarkable achievement has a season when nothing appears to be changing. Learn to respect that season. It is building the foundation that success will later stand on. Another mistake people make is underestimating the power of one good day. They tell themselves, it's only one workout, it's only one healthy meal, it's only 10 minutes. But remember this, a single action rarely changes your life. What it changes is your direction, and direction determines destination. Imagine 2 airplanes leaving the same airport. One changes its course by only a few degrees. At first, the difference is impossible to notice. Hours later, they land in completely different countries. Your habits work exactly like that. Tiny choices, massive consequences. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. That's the key. Stop asking, will this one action change my life? Ask instead, what happens if I repeat this action for the next 5 years? Now the answer becomes obvious. One page becomes dozens of books. One workout becomes a stronger body. One saved dollar becomes financial freedom. One honest conversation becomes a healthier relationship. One focused hour becomes a meaningful career. Small actions become extraordinary lives. Because consistency compounds. Just like interest in a bank account. At first, growth seems slow, almost disappointing. Then one day, the accumulated effort begins working for you instead of requiring so much from you. That is the reward for refusing to quit too early. Remember this whenever you feel discouraged. The greatest danger is not moving slowly. The greatest danger is stopping completely. Move slowly if you must. Rest if you must. Adjust your pace if you must. But keep moving. Because every day you continue, you strengthen something far more valuable than your skills. You strengthen your belief that you are someone who follows through. And once that belief becomes part of your identity, discipline no longer feels like something you force yourself to do. It becomes who you are. Small actions, repeated daily, create extraordinary change. Let those words become more than a sentence. Let them become your standard. Today, don't chase dramatic progress. Chase consistency. Tomorrow, do it again. Then again. One day, you'll look back and realize that the life you wanted wasn't built in one extraordinary moment. It was built in hundreds of ordinary days that you chose not to waste. You have learned that momentum is created through consistency, not intensity. But even consistent people face an invisible enemy, waiting to feel motivated before they act. Now it's time to expose that illusion. Chapter 3. Stop depending on motivation. There is one lie that quietly steals more dreams than failure ever could. It sounds harmless, almost logical. I'll do it when I feel motivated. Most people never question this sentence. They simply wait. They wait for Monday. They wait for the new month. They wait until life becomes less stressful. They wait until they have more confidence. They wait until inspiration returns. And while they wait, life keeps moving. The uncomfortable truth is this: motivation is a feeling. Feelings change. Discipline is a decision. Decisions can outlast feelings. That is the difference between people who admire success and people who build it. You have a choice. You can organize your life around your emotions, or you can organize your life around your values. One changes every hour. The other can guide you for decades. That's the key. Think about the weather. Some mornings are bright and clear, others are cold, dark, and filled with rain. You don't expect the weather to be the same every day. So why do you expect your emotions to be? There will be mornings when you feel energetic. There will be mornings when you feel tired. There will be days when your mind is focused. There will be days when your thoughts are scattered. This is not a problem. It is simply part of being human. The problem begins when you allow temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. A tired morning becomes a missed workout. A stressful afternoon becomes another excuse. A bad mood becomes another week of procrastination. Little by little, feelings begin controlling your future. And feelings were never designed to lead your life. They were designed to inform you, not command you. You don't have to obey every emotion you experience. You don't have to negotiate with every excuse your mind creates. You have a choice. Imagine a professional musician. Do you think they only practice when inspiration appears? Imagine a surgeon. Do you think they only show up when they feel excited? Imagine a firefighter. Do you think they wait for motivation before responding to an emergency? Of course not. Professionals understand something that amateurs often forget. The work comes first. The feeling follows. Yet many people treat their most important goals like hobbies. If I feel like it, I'll do it. If I'm in the mood, I'll start. If today feels right, I'll make progress. That approach guarantees inconsistency. Because moods are inconsistent. Success requires something stronger: commitment. Commitment sounds less exciting than motivation, but commitment is far more powerful. Motivation says, I want to. Commitment says, I said I would. One depends on emotion, the other depends on character. It's not about excitement, it's about discipline. That's the key. Think back to someone you deeply respect, maybe a parent, a teacher, a mentor, a coach. What made them reliable? Was it because they always felt motivated? Or was it because they showed up even when they didn't? Reliability creates trust, first from other people, then from yourself. And self-trust is impossible without consistency. Every time you do what you promised yourself you would do, especially when you don't feel like it, you strengthen something invisible. You strengthen your identity. You begin seeing yourself differently, not as someone who talks about change, but as someone who lives it. That shift changes everything. Now let's talk about routines. Most people misunderstand routines. They think routines remove freedom. In reality, routines protect freedom. Without routines, every decision becomes another debate. Should I work out today? Should I read tonight? Should I write now? Should I practice later? Your mind becomes exhausted from making the same decisions over and over. This is called decision fatigue. The more decisions you make, the weaker your self-control becomes. Successful people understand this. They eliminate unnecessary decisions. They create routines that make the right action automatic, not because they have stronger willpower, because they use less willpower. Imagine brushing your teeth. You don't wake up every morning and debate whether it feels worthwhile. You simply do it. The habit has become part of your identity. Your most important disciplines should eventually feel the same, not because they become easier, because they become normal. You have a choice. Stop asking, "Do I feel like doing it today?" Start asking, "Is this what the person I want to become would do?" That single question changes your perspective. It shifts your attention away from temporary comfort toward long-term identity. Here's another truth most people overlook. Action creates emotion more often than emotion creates action. Think about the last task you avoided. Maybe it was answering emails, cleaning your home, working on a difficult project. How did you feel before you started? Probably resistant, overwhelmed, unmotivated. But what happened 10 minutes after you began? Something shifted. The task didn't become perfect. You didn't suddenly become passionate, but the resistance became smaller. Momentum replaced hesitation. Your brain adapted. This happens because action changes your emotional state. Movement creates energy. Progress creates confidence. Completion creates satisfaction. That is why waiting for motivation is backwards. Action comes first. Motivation catches up later. Read that again. Action comes first. Motivation catches up later. The people who seem endlessly motivated are often simply people who have built the habit of acting before they feel ready. You only see the confidence. You don't see the thousands of ordinary days when they worked despite boredom, despite stress, despite uncertainty. That is what separates professionals from everyone else. Not talent, not intelligence, consistency during ordinary days. Anyone can work when they feel inspired. The real test comes on quiet Tuesday afternoons, on rainy mornings, on evenings when nobody is watching. Can you still show up? Can you still keep your word? That is where character is built. Not in moments of excitement, in moments of resistance. Resistance is not proof that you should stop. Resistance is proof that your discipline is being tested. And every test gives you two options. Strengthen the old habit, or strengthen the new one. You have a choice every single day. Perhaps the simplest habit you can build is this: never miss twice. Everyone has difficult days. Everyone gets sick. Everyone becomes overwhelmed. Missing once is part of life. Missing twice begins creating a new pattern. Protect the return more than the streak. If you skip today's workout, come back tomorrow. If you miss a morning routine, restart in the evening. If you lose focus for 1 week, begin again next Monday, not next month. Perfection is fragile. Consistency is resilient. That's the key. Stop trying to become someone who is always motivated. Become someone who acts regardless of motivation. That identity will carry you much farther than inspiration ever could. Because inspiration is borrowed, discipline is earned, and earned things stay with you. Remember this whenever your mind whispers, "I don't feel like it today." Smile. Recognize the voice. Then move anyway. Because every time you act despite resistance, you teach your mind a powerful lesson. Feelings are temporary. Commitment is permanent. And over time, what once required discipline becomes habit. What once felt difficult becomes ordinary. What once seemed impossible becomes part of who you are. Action comes first. Motivation catches up later. Carry that sentence with you. Repeat it on difficult mornings. Repeat it before difficult conversations. Repeat it whenever hesitation returns. One day, you won't need the reminder anymore, because you will no longer be waiting for motivation. You will have become someone who simply takes action. You have learned that discipline must lead when motivation disappears. But another invisible obstacle still remains: the belief that every step must be perfect before it is worth taking. Let's confront that illusion next. Chapter 4. Make peace with imperfection. Perfection has one remarkable talent. It disguises itself as excellence. It whispers that you simply have high standards, that you're being careful, that you're waiting until everything is just right. But if you've been waiting for months or years to begin something that truly matters, you need to ask yourself an uncomfortable question. Are you pursuing excellence, or are you hiding behind perfection? There is a difference, a profound difference. Excellence says, I'll improve as I go. Perfection says, I won't begin until I can't fail. One creates progress, the other creates paralysis. You have a choice. You can spend your life polishing ideas that never leave your mind, or you can create something imperfect that has the power to change your life. That's the key. Many people believe perfectionism comes from discipline. It doesn't. More often it comes from fear. The fear of criticism, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of discovering that you're not as capable as you hoped. Perfection becomes a shield. As long as the work is unfinished, it cannot be judged. As long as the project never begins, it can never fail. But something else happens. It can never succeed either. That is the hidden cost of perfection. It protects you from disappointment, while quietly stealing your future. Think about the author who spends 10 years planning the perfect novel, but never finishes the first chapter. Think about the entrepreneur who keeps redesigning the logo instead of launching the business. Think about the artist who buys new equipment every month but never shares a single piece of work. From the outside, they appear productive. Inside, they are standing still. Preparation has become procrastination wearing a better suit. It's not about quality, it's about courage. That's the difference. You don't need their permission. You don't need the world's approval before you begin. You don't need everyone to understand your vision. Most importantly, you don't need your first attempt to be impressive. Every master was once a beginner whose work looked ordinary. Every expert once created something they would be embarrassed to show today. Every confident speaker once stumbled over simple sentences. Every successful business owner once made expensive mistakes. Every athlete once lost. Every musician once played the wrong note. What separates them from everyone else? Not talent, not luck, not perfect timing. They continued, while others stopped. That's the key. Imagine a sculptor standing before a block of marble. If they refuse to make the first cut because it might not be perfect, the sculpture will remain trapped inside the stone forever. Only imperfect action reveals hidden beauty. Life works the same way. You cannot improve what does not exist. You cannot refine an idea that never becomes reality. You cannot edit a blank page. You cannot strengthen a muscle that is never used. Action creates something to improve. Waiting creates nothing. Progress begins where perfection ends. Read that sentence again. Progress begins where perfection ends. Those words are more than encouragement. They describe how learning actually works. Most learning happens after mistakes, not before them. Think about how children learn to speak. They pronounce words incorrectly. They misuse grammar. They say things that make adults laugh. Do they stop? No. Because they don't see mistakes as evidence that they should quit. They see mistakes as part of learning. Somewhere along the way, many adults lose that mindset. Instead of asking, "What can this teach me?" they ask, "What does this say about me?" That single change is devastating. Because mistakes stop being information, they become identity. One failed presentation becomes, "I'm terrible at speaking." One rejected application becomes, "I'm not good enough." One unsuccessful business becomes, "I'm not an entrepreneur." Notice what happened. A temporary result became a permanent label. But reality doesn't work that way. Failure is an event. It is never an identity. You have a choice. Separate what happened from who you are. That's the key. Every mistake contains data. The question is whether you're willing to read it. A scientist doesn't become emotional because an experiment doesn't work. The experiment simply provides information. Now they know what doesn't work. Now they adjust. Now they test again. Imagine if scientists treated every unsuccessful experiment as personal failure. Entire fields of medicine would never exist. Technology would never advance. Progress depends on correction. So does your life. Every conversation that goes badly teaches communication. Every missed opportunity teaches preparation. Every poor decision teaches judgment. Every setback teaches resilience. If you pay attention. It's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about extracting wisdom from them. That is discipline. Many people also underestimate the danger of endless improvement. They keep changing, keep adjusting, keep tweaking, keep preparing, but they never release, never publish, never launch, never share. Imagine an airplane sitting on the runway. The engines are running. Everything has been checked. The passengers are waiting. But the pilot refuses to take off because conditions might become slightly better. How long before preparation becomes absurd? Eventually, the purpose of the airplane is forgotten. Airplanes were built to fly. Books were built to be read. Ideas were built to be shared. Skills were built to be used. Your purpose is not to prepare forever. Your purpose is to contribute. Done is always better than perfect. Not because finished work is flawless, because finished work creates feedback. Feedback creates improvement. Improvement creates mastery. Mastery creates excellence. Notice the order. Completion comes before excellence, never after it. That's the key. There is another truth that perfection hides. People rarely remember your small imperfections. They remember your courage. They remember that you showed up, that you tried, that you kept going. Think about your favorite speaker. Do you remember every word they stumbled over? Probably not. Think about your favorite author. Can you list every sentence that wasn't perfect? Of course not. People connect with authenticity far more than perfection. Perfection creates distance. Authenticity creates trust. You don't need to be flawless. You need to be real. You have a choice: Today, release something, finish something, submit something, publish something. Say the words you've been rehearsing. Take the opportunity you've been postponing. Not because it's perfect, because it exists. The world cannot respond to work that remains hidden, and neither can you. Each imperfect action builds confidence, not because the action succeeds every time, because you discover that you can survive imperfection. You discover that criticism doesn't destroy you, embarrassment doesn't define you, mistakes don't end your story, they become part of it. And every chapter, even the messy ones, teaches something the perfect version never could. Remember this whenever your mind whispers, just one more change. Ask yourself, am I improving the work or delaying the work? The answer will usually be obvious. Progress begins where perfection ends. Carry that sentence into everything you do. Let it interrupt overthinking. Let it silence unnecessary doubt. Let it remind you that imperfect movement will always travel farther than perfect hesitation. Because the people who transform their lives are rarely the ones who waited until everything was right. They are the ones who started while everything was still uncertain. They improved as they moved. They learned as they failed. They succeeded because they refused to let perfection become another excuse to stand still. You have stopped waiting. You have built momentum. You have learned to act without motivation and without perfection. Now it is time to strengthen something even deeper, the relationship you have with yourself. Because every promise you keep shapes the person you become. Chapter 5. Keep the promises you make to yourself. There is a relationship that will determine the quality of every other relationship in your life. It is not the relationship with your family. It is not the relationship with your friends. It is not the relationship with your career. It is the relationship you have with yourself. And like every relationship, it is built on trust. Not the kind of trust that comes from words, the kind that comes from keeping your promises. Think about someone you completely trust. Why do you trust them? Because they occasionally say the right things? No. You trust them because over time, their actions matched their words. When they said they would be there, they showed up. When they made a commitment, they honored it. When life became difficult, they remained dependable. Trust is never created in a single moment. It is accumulated, one kept promise at a time. Now ask yourself a different question. Do you trust yourself? When you tell yourself you'll wake up early tomorrow, do you believe it? When you promise that this will finally be the week you start exercising, does part of you quietly whisper, "We've heard this before"? That whisper matters because your mind is always listening. Every promise you break teaches your brain something. It teaches your brain that your words cannot be trusted, not by other people, by you. That's the hidden cost of broken promises. Most people think they are only missing one workout, skipping one study session, postponing one important task, but something deeper is happening. Every broken promise leaves behind a tiny crack in self-trust. One crack doesn't seem dangerous, neither do 10. But eventually, those cracks become an identity. You begin seeing yourself as someone who starts but never finishes, someone who means well but rarely follows through, someone who talks more than they act. That identity becomes heavy. Not because it is true, because you have repeated it long enough to believe it. You have a choice. You can continue proving to yourself that your words mean very little, or you can begin rebuilding trust, one promise at a time. That's the key. Many people try to build confidence by changing the way they think. They repeat affirmations. They tell themselves, I am successful. I am disciplined. I believe in myself. There is nothing wrong with positive thinking, but words without evidence rarely survive difficult moments. Imagine someone standing in front of a mirror saying, I am strong, then refusing to lift anything heavy. Would those words create strength? Of course not. Strength comes from lifting, not talking. Confidence works exactly the same way. Confidence is not something you convince yourself to feel. It is something you earn through repeated action. You don't become confident because you believe you can do hard things. You become confident because you have already done hard things. That's the difference. Confidence is memory. It is your mind remembering, I've done this before. I kept going last time. I survived discomfort. I can trust myself. That's why action is so powerful. Action creates evidence. Evidence creates belief. Belief creates confidence. Notice the order. Action comes first, always. It's not about positive thinking. It's about positive proof. That's the key. Think about learning to swim. Would reading 20 books about swimming remove your fear of water? No. Would listening to motivational speeches teach your body how to float? No. At some point, you have to enter the water. At first, your movements are awkward. You panic. You make mistakes. But every minute you stay in the water, something changes. Fear slowly becomes familiarity. Confidence quietly replaces uncertainty. Not because someone inspired you, because experience rewrote your beliefs. Life works exactly the same way. Every promise you keep is another minute in the water, another piece of evidence, another reminder that you are capable of more than your fear suggests. But here is where many people make another mistake. They promise themselves too much. They say, starting tomorrow, I'll never eat unhealthy food again. I'll work out every single day. I'll read 100 books this year. I'll completely change my life. These promises sound inspiring until they become impossible. Then one missed day becomes total failure. One mistake becomes surrender. One setback becomes another excuse to quit. Why? Because the promise was larger than the habit. Discipline grows best inside realistic commitments. Start smaller, much smaller. Promise yourself 10 minutes of focused work, 1 page, 1 walk around the block, 1 healthy meal, 5 minutes of silence, something you can actually keep. It may not impress anyone. That doesn't matter. You are not trying to impress people. You are trying to convince yourself. You don't need their permission. You don't need applause. You don't need recognition. You only need another piece of evidence that says, I keep my word. Those words are priceless, because once your mind begins believing them, everything changes. Imagine carrying 2 versions of yourself through life. The first version constantly says, I'll do it later. The second quietly finishes what it starts. Which one would you trust with a difficult goal? Which one would you trust with your future? That second person isn't different because they possess more talent. They simply built a history of following through. And history creates identity. Every promise you keep becomes part of who you are. Read that slowly. Every promise you keep becomes part of who you are. Not part of what you accomplish, part of who you become. Identity is built in ordinary moments. The moment you choose to get out of bed when no one is watching. The moment you finish the last 10 minutes of work instead of stopping early. The moment you tell yourself, I said I would. And then you do. These moments appear small, but they are never small. because your brain is recording them. Every completed action strengthens one identity. Every abandoned commitment strengthens another. You have a choice. Every day, every hour, every promise. Which identity are you feeding? There will be days when you fail. Accept that now. You will oversleep. You will procrastinate. You will miss a workout. You will forget a commitment. Being disciplined does not mean being flawless. It means returning quickly. The disciplined person is not the one who never falls. It is the one who refuses to stay on the ground. If you break one promise, don't break the next one. Repair trust immediately, because trust grows slowly, but it can also recover, one action at a time. Treat yourself the way you would treat a trusted friend, not with endless excuses, not with harsh judgment, with honesty, with accountability, with consistency. That is how trust is rebuilt. One fulfilled promise, then another, until one day something remarkable happens. You stop questioning whether you'll follow through. You simply do. Not because it became easy, because it became your identity. You became someone whose words carry weight, even when no one else hears them. That's the highest form of integrity, keeping promises that only you know exist. Remember this whenever you are tempted to delay something important. The decision is bigger than today's task. You are casting another vote for the person you are becoming. Choose carefully, because years from now, your future will not be built by your biggest achievements. It will be built by thousands of quiet promises that nobody celebrated, except the person who mattered most. You. Every promise you keep becomes part of who you are. Carry that sentence with you. Let it guide your next decision. Not tomorrow, today. Because discipline is no longer just about starting. It is about becoming someone who can be trusted. And once you trust yourself, you unlock a level of freedom that no outside approval can ever provide. You have learned to trust your own word. But there is still one voice capable of breaking that trust before you even begin. The voice inside your own mind. Let's learn how to master it. Chapter 6. Master the voice inside your mind. There's a conversation happening inside your mind every single day. It begins before you get out of bed. It follows you to work. It sits beside you while you eat. It speaks when you fail. It speaks when you succeed. It is the only voice you will hear for your entire life. The question is not whether that voice exists. The question is whether it is leading you or misleading you. Most people never stop to examine it. They simply obey it. I'm too tired. This isn't the right time. I'm not good enough. I'll probably fail. Someone else can do it better. I'll start tomorrow. Notice something. Those sentences sound like facts, but they are not facts. They are interpretations. They are stories. They are guesses. Yet millions of people build their lives around them as if they were absolute truth. That's the hidden danger of the human mind. It speaks with confidence even when it is wrong. You have a choice. You can believe every thought that appears, or you can learn to question it. That's the key. Imagine standing beside a busy highway. Thousands of cars pass by. Some are beautiful, some are damaged, some are loud, some are quiet. Would you try to stop every single car? Would you chase each one? Would you climb inside every vehicle simply because it passed in front of you? Of course not. You watch them. Then you let them continue. Your thoughts work exactly the same way. Every day, thousands of thoughts pass through your mind. Some are useful, some are destructive. Some deserve your attention, most do not. The problem begins when you assume every thought deserves obedience. It doesn't. Your thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Read that again. Your thoughts are suggestions, not commands. That sentence alone can change the way you experience your entire life. Because once you understand it, something extraordinary happens. You create space between yourself and your thoughts. Instead of saying, "I am a failure," you begin noticing, "I am having the thought that I am a failure." Those two sentences sound similar. They are completely different. The first becomes your identity. The second becomes an observation. And observation creates freedom. That's the key. Many people believe the goal is to eliminate negative thoughts. That is impossible. The human brain evolved to notice danger, to anticipate problems, to prepare for uncertainty. Negative thoughts are not evidence that something is wrong with you. They are evidence that you have a human mind. The goal is not to stop thinking. The goal is to stop obeying every thought. Think about someone learning to drive. At first, every movement demands attention. The mirrors, the steering wheel, the speed, the traffic, everything feels overwhelming. But over time, the driver learns something important. Not every sound deserves a reaction. Not every movement requires panic. Experience creates calm. You can train your mind in the same way. Not by forcing silence, but by choosing where your attention goes. Attention is one of the greatest forms of power you possess. Whatever receives your attention becomes stronger. Feed fear every day, and fear grows. Feed resentment every day, and resentment grows. Feed excuses every day, and excuses become your identity. But feed discipline, feed courage, feed action. Those grow too. You have a choice every moment. Where will you place your attention? Most people underestimate this question, yet your attention is shaping your future long before your actions do. Consider this. Two people experience the same setback. Both lose an important opportunity. The first spends weeks replaying the event. What if I had done this? What if they don't respect me? What if I never recover? Their attention becomes trapped in the past. The second person asks a different question. What is the next step? Nothing about the event changes. Everything about the response changes. One remains stuck. The other keeps moving. The difference is attention. Not intelligence, not talent, not luck. Attention. That's the key. Now let's talk about overthinking. Overthinking feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like preparation. But most overthinking is simply delayed action. Imagine standing at the edge of a swimming pool. You spend 20 minutes thinking about the temperature. You imagine how cold it might feel. You analyze every possibility. Has the water become warmer because you thought longer? No. The only thing that changes your experience is getting into the water. Life works the same way. There comes a point when thinking no longer serves you. Only action does. Many people wait until uncertainty disappears. But uncertainty disappears through action, not through thinking. That is why the next simple step is always more valuable than another hour of analysis. Want to write? Write 1 paragraph. Want to exercise? Do 5 minutes. Want to repair a relationship? Send the message. Want to start the business? Register the name. Movement interrupts overthinking. That's why action is one of the most powerful forms of mental clarity. It gives your mind something real to respond to, instead of something imaginary to fear. Your thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Carry that sentence into every difficult moment. When your mind says, "You're not ready," pause. Ask yourself, is this a fact or just another suggestion? When your mind says, "People will judge you," pause. Do I know that, or am I guessing? When your mind says, "You failed before," answer with another question. And what does that have to do with what I choose today? Notice what you're doing. You're no longer fighting your thoughts, you're investigating them. That changes everything, because fighting thoughts often gives them more power. Ignoring them rarely works, but observing them calmly removes their authority. Think of the sky. Clouds appear. Some are light, some become storms, some disappear within minutes. The sky never argues with the clouds. It simply allows them to pass. Become the sky, not the cloud. Let your thoughts arrive. Let them leave. Choose your actions based on your values, not your passing emotions. That is real mental strength. Many people believe discipline is about controlling behavior. In reality, discipline begins by directing attention. Where attention goes, energy follows. Where energy goes, habits grow. Where habits grow, identity is formed. Protect your attention. It is your most valuable resource, far more valuable than time. Because where you consistently place your attention determines how you spend your time, and how you spend your time determines who you become. You have a choice, not over every thought, but over every response. That is enough. That has always been enough. Every day your mind will offer comfort, fear, excuses, comparison, doubt. Listen if you wish, but remember, listening is not the same as obeying. The strongest people are not those with silent minds. They are those who refuse to let noisy minds make important decisions. That is freedom. Not controlling every thought. Choosing which thoughts deserve your action. Your thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Let that become your filter, your reminder, your quiet source of strength. Repeat it when fear appears. Repeat it when doubt grows louder. Repeat it whenever your mind tries to convince you that comfort is safer than growth. One day, you will notice something remarkable. The voice inside your mind will still speak, but it will no longer control the direction of your life, because you will have learned to lead yourself, not with louder thoughts, but with wiser actions. You have learned to master the conversation within. Now it is time to examine the voices around you, because even the strongest mind can be shaped by the company it keeps. Chapter 7. Choose people who strengthen your discipline. There is a force shaping your life every single day. Most people never notice it. It doesn't appear in motivational books. It doesn't announce itself when you wake up. It works quietly, patiently, almost invisibly. Yet over the course of years, it influences nearly every habit you develop, every standard you accept, and every version of yourself you become. That force is your environment. More specifically, the people you spend your life around. You may believe your future depends only on your willpower, your intelligence, your ambition. Those things matter, but they are not the whole story. Because human beings are imitators long before they are innovators. We absorb attitudes, we copy behaviors, we inherit expectations, not because someone forces us to, because belonging has always been one of our deepest instincts. That's the key. Imagine placing a healthy green plant in a dark room. No matter how strong the plant is, it will eventually begin to weaken. Now imagine placing that same plant where it receives sunlight every day. The plant hasn't changed, the environment has, and suddenly, growth becomes natural. People are no different. You have a choice. You can keep asking why your discipline disappears, or you can begin asking whether your environment is quietly teaching you to quit. That question changes everything. Think about the habits you have today. How many of them were chosen consciously, and how many simply became normal because everyone around you did the same thing? Perhaps checking your phone the moment you wake up, complaining about work, avoiding difficult conversations, spending money to impress people, putting off important goals. Very few people wake up and intentionally decide, "I want to waste my potential." Instead, they slowly adapt to the standards around them. That is why environment is so powerful. Normal is contagious. If everyone around you complains, complaining begins to feel normal. If everyone around you avoids responsibility, excuses begin to sound reasonable. If everyone around you settles for comfort, ambition slowly starts feeling uncomfortable. The people around you quietly shape the person you become. Read that sentence again. The people around you quietly shape the person you become. Not loudly, quietly. That's why the influence is so dangerous. You rarely notice it while it's happening. Think about language. If you move to another country and live there for 10 years, your accent may change. Not because you planned it, because repetition reshaped you. Behavior works the same way. Spend enough time around disciplined people, and discipline begins to feel ordinary. Spend enough time around people who constantly make excuses, and excuses begin sounding intelligent. That's the key. This doesn't mean you should judge people, nor does it mean you should abandon everyone who thinks differently. It means you should become aware. Awareness always comes before change. Ask yourself, who challenges me to become better? Who encourages my growth? Who quietly rewards my worst habits? Who makes discipline feel strange? Who makes laziness feel acceptable? These are difficult questions, but honest answers lead to powerful decisions. Because every relationship teaches something. Some teach courage, others teach comfort. Some expand your life, others quietly shrink it. You have a choice. Choose carefully. Another invisible trap is the desire for approval. Many people never become who they are capable of becoming because they spend too much energy trying to be accepted. They ask, what will people think? What if they don't understand? What if they laugh? What if they think I've changed? The answer is simple. You have changed. You're supposed to. Growth always looks strange to people who are comfortable standing still. That's not arrogance. That's reality. Imagine someone deciding to stop drinking alcohol in a group where drinking is the center of every weekend. What often happens? People joke, they pressure, they question the decision. Not necessarily because they dislike the person, sometimes because your discipline reminds them of their own excuses. Growth has a strange effect. It inspires some people, it unsettles others. You don't control which reaction you receive. You only control whether you keep growing anyway. You don't need their permission. Read that again. You don't need their permission. Not to wake up earlier, not to become healthier, not to start the business, not to return to school, not to change your habits, not to outgrow old versions of yourself. Seeking approval is exhausting because the target keeps moving. Please one person, another becomes disappointed. Meet one expectation, someone creates a new one. If your life depends on everyone's approval, your peace will always depend on someone else's opinion. That is not freedom. Freedom begins when your values become louder than their opinions. That's the key. There is another kind of relationship that deserves your attention. The quiet relationships. The people who don't constantly motivate you with speeches. They simply live well. They show up. They keep their word. They work hard without announcing it. They remain calm during difficulty. They choose responsibility over excuses. Their discipline becomes contagious, not because they preach, because they model. Those are the people you need more of. Sometimes they are mentors, sometimes friends, sometimes co-workers, sometimes authors you've never met. Sometimes they are the voices you choose to listen to through books and audiobooks like this one. Remember, influence does not require physical proximity. The ideas you consume every day become companions. The conversations you listen to become part of your internal dialogue. If you spend hours consuming outrage, your mind becomes restless. If you spend hours consuming gossip, your attention becomes scattered. If you spend hours learning from thoughtful people, your thinking gradually changes. Protect your mental environment as carefully as your physical one, because both are shaping you. The people around you quietly shape the person you become. There will be moments when choosing growth feels lonely. Accept that. Not everyone is meant to walk beside you forever. Some people belong to earlier chapters of your life. Be grateful for what they taught you, then keep walking. Do not stay in a place that demands you become smaller just to remain accepted. The strongest relationships never ask you to abandon your potential. They challenge you to reach it. You have a choice. Become the person who encourages discipline in others. Become the friend who keeps promises. The parent who models consistency. The coworker who stays dependable. The partner who values growth over comfort. Because influence works in both directions. As your environment shapes you, you also shape your environment. One disciplined person can quietly change an entire family. One honest leader can transform a workplace. One committed friend can inspire another to begin. Never underestimate the ripple effect of your example. People may ignore your advice. They rarely ignore your actions. That's why becoming disciplined is never just about you. Someone is always watching. A child, a friend, a colleague. Even if they never say a word, your consistency gives others permission to believe change is possible. That is leadership in its purest form. Not demanding, not controlling, simply living in a way that invites others to grow. Remember this whenever you feel tempted to seek approval. Approval fades. Respect lasts. And the deepest respect begins with respecting yourself enough to choose environments, conversations, and relationships that strengthen your character instead of weakening it. The people around you quietly shape the person you become, so choose your circle with intention. Choose your influences with care. Choose your standards wisely, because eventually, what surrounds you becomes what lives within you. You have strengthened your habits, your mindset, and your relationships. Now there is one resource that ties them all together: the way you spend your hours each day. Because discipline ultimately reveals itself in one place above all others. Chapter 8. Protect your time like it matters. Every person on earth receives the same gift each morning: 24 hours. Not 25, not 23, 24. The wealthy receive it, the poor receive it, the famous, the unknown, the disciplined, the distracted. Time is the one resource life distributes equally, yet the outcomes it produces are dramatically different. Why? Because time itself is not the deciding factor. Attention is. Priorities are. Discipline is. That's the key. Most people believe they lose their future through one catastrophic mistake. In reality, they lose it 5 minutes at a time. 5 minutes checking a notification. 10 minutes scrolling without purpose. Another 20 minutes telling themselves they'll begin soon. An hour disappears, then another. By the end of the week, nothing important has moved forward. Not because they lacked ability, because distraction quietly stole the opportunity. That is what makes distraction so dangerous. It rarely feels dangerous. It feels harmless. Just one video, just one message, just one quick look, just one more minute. But distraction rarely arrives alone. It brings something with it. Fragmented attention. And fragmented attention creates fragmented lives. You have a choice. Protect your attention, or allow everything else to compete for it. That's the difference. Imagine trying to fill a bucket with water. Now imagine the bucket has dozens of tiny holes. No single hole seems important. Each one leaks only a little. But together, the bucket never fills. Your attention works the same way. One notification. One unnecessary meeting. One random conversation. One impulse to check your phone. One more glance at social media. Individually, they seem insignificant. Collectively, they drain the very resource required for meaningful work. Most people don't realize they aren't losing hours. They're losing focus. And focus is where great work is created. Think about every meaningful accomplishment in your life. Learning a new skill, writing an important paper, building a business, repairing a relationship, recovering your health. Did any of those happen through constant interruption? Of course not. Every meaningful achievement required periods of uninterrupted attention, deep attention, quiet attention, patient attention. That's why protecting your focus is not a luxury, it is a responsibility. What you protect today becomes your future tomorrow. Read that again. What you protect today becomes your future tomorrow. Protect your attention. Protect your mornings. Protect your evenings. Protect the moments when your best thinking happens, because those moments eventually become your life. Many people say, "I don't have enough time," but often the real problem is different. They have never decided what deserves their time. There is a profound difference between being busy and being productive. Busy people react. Productive people choose. Busy people answer every notification. Productive people decide what matters before the world interrupts them. Busy people fill their calendars. Productive people protect their priorities. That's the key. Imagine a gardener. If they spend every day pulling weeds but never planting seeds, what happens? The garden remains empty. Many people live exactly this way. They spend every day responding, replying, fixing, reacting, managing emergencies. By evening, they feel exhausted. Yet nothing meaningful has grown, not because they worked too little, because they never protected time for what mattered most. You have a choice. Spend your life reacting or spend your life creating. Those are two very different lives. One simple habit changes everything. Schedule your priorities before someone else schedules theirs. Read that sentence again. Schedule your priorities before someone else schedules theirs. If your calendar contains only obligations to other people, eventually your dreams become obligations you never fulfilled. Your calendar is more honest than your intentions. People often say, "My family is my priority. My health matters most. I want to write a book. I want to build something meaningful." Then you look at their schedule. No exercise, no reading, no creative work, no quiet thinking, only meetings, notifications, entertainment, urgent requests. Your schedule reveals what your life is actually becoming, not what you hope it becomes. That's why discipline belongs on your calendar. Don't simply hope you'll find time. Decide where time will go before the day begins, because if you don't choose, someone else will. That's the key. Now let's talk about one of the hardest words in the English language. No. Many people struggle with this word, not because they are weak, because they want to be kind, helpful, reliable, liked, so they say yes. Yes to another meeting, yes to another favor, yes to another commitment. Little by little, they give away every empty space in their day. Then they wonder why they never have time for themselves. The truth is simple. Every time you say yes to something, you are automatically saying no to something else. Say yes to endless distractions, you say no to your goals. Say yes to everyone else's priorities, you say no to your own future. You don't need their permission to protect your time. You don't need to apologize for having boundaries. Boundaries are not selfish. They are necessary. Imagine a bank account. Every request people make is a withdrawal. Every distraction is another withdrawal. If nothing is deposited, eventually the account becomes empty. Time works exactly the same way. You cannot endlessly give your attention away and expect your dreams to grow. Protecting your time is protecting your future. Some people will misunderstand that. Accept it. Not everyone benefits when you become more disciplined. Some people are comfortable with the version of you that is always available, always agreeable, always interruptible. Growth changes relationships. That is normal. Remember, saying no to one thing allows you to say yes to something greater. No to distraction, yes to focus. No to unnecessary obligation, yes to meaningful work. No to immediate comfort, yes to long-term fulfillment. That's the difference. There is another habit that quietly transforms productive people. They create space before they need it. Space to think, space to reflect, space to recover. Most people schedule every minute, then wonder why they constantly feel overwhelmed. Your mind needs room to breathe. Silence is productive. Stillness is productive. Walking without your phone is productive. Thinking deeply is productive. Some of your greatest ideas will never appear while your attention is scattered across 20 different screens. Protect empty space. Because empty space is where clarity often arrives. What you protect today becomes your future tomorrow. Protect 1 hour of focused work each morning. Protect dinner with your family. Protect your sleep. Protect your reading time. Protect your health. Protect your peace. No one else can do that for you. You have a choice. Every morning you wake up with 24 hours. The question is never, where did my time go? The better question is, where did I choose to send it? Because time never disappears, it is always exchanged. Exchanged for habits, for distractions, for conversations, for progress, for regret, for growth. You decide the exchange every single day. Years from now, people won't remember how many emails you answered, how many notifications you checked, how quickly you replied. They will remember what you built, the person you became, the relationships you nurtured, the work you finished, the life you intentionally created. None of those happen by accident. They happen because someone decided their time was too valuable to waste. Carry this sentence with you. What you protect today becomes your future tomorrow. Repeat it whenever something unimportant asks for your attention. Repeat it before opening another unnecessary app. Repeat it before saying yes when your heart knows the answer should be no. Because protecting your time is not really about managing a schedule. It is about protecting the life your schedule is quietly creating. You have learned how to guard your time because time is the container in which discipline lives. But discipline is never truly finished. It must be renewed, examined, and strengthened again and again. That is the final lesson. Chapter 9. Review, adjust, and keep going. If you remember only one lesson from this entire audiobook, let it be this. You will fall behind. You will miss days. You will lose momentum. You will disappoint yourself. Not because you are weak, not because you lack discipline, because you are human. Some people hear this and become discouraged. You should hear it and feel relieved. Because discipline has never been about perfection. It has always been about returning. That's the difference. Many people imagine disciplined people as individuals who never make mistakes, who never oversleep, never procrastinate, never lose focus, never doubt themselves. That person does not exist. The difference between a disciplined person and everyone else is surprisingly simple. When they fall, they get back up sooner. You have a choice. You can let one bad day become a bad week, or you can let one bad day remain exactly what it was. One bad day. That's the key. Think about driving across the country. Imagine taking one wrong turn. Would you stop the car, abandon the trip, and decide you were never meant to reach your destination? Of course not. You adjust the route. You continue driving. Yet this is exactly what many people do with their goals. They miss one workout, so I've failed. They eat one unhealthy meal. I've ruined everything. They skip one morning routine. I'll start again next month. Notice the pattern. One mistake becomes permission to quit. That is never the mistake that defeats you. The real mistake is believing the first mistake defines you. It doesn't. Direction matters more than interruption. Your life is not shaped by the occasional detour. It is shaped by the road you repeatedly choose. That's why returning quickly is one of the greatest forms of discipline. Not because returning feels good, because returning changes your identity. Every return sends a message to your mind. I don't give up because of one difficult day. I don't abandon myself because I stumbled. I continue. That message becomes powerful over time, much more powerful than perfection. You never fail by starting again. Read those words slowly. You never fail by starting again. Failure is not beginning again. Failure is deciding that yesterday has more power than today. Every sunrise offers a new decision. Every morning offers another opportunity. Every hour offers another beginning. Life gives you more fresh starts than you realize. The question is whether you accept them. Many people spend more energy criticizing themselves than improving themselves. They replay old mistakes, old conversations, old embarrassments, old failures again and again and again. They become experts at self-judgment, but beginners at self-correction. There is a better way. Review your life like a coach, not like a critic. A critic only points out flaws. A coach looks for improvement. Imagine a basketball coach watching game footage. Does the coach spend 2 hours shouting, "You're terrible! No wonder you lost! You'll never improve"? Of course not. The coach asks different questions. What worked? What didn't? What can we change before the next game? That is how growth happens. Not through shame, through awareness. That's the key. At the end of every day, ask yourself 3 simple questions. What did I do well today? Where did I lose focus? What is one thing I will improve tomorrow? Notice what is missing. There is no question asking, "Why am I such a failure?" There is no invitation to attack yourself, only an invitation to learn. Learning creates progress. Judgment creates paralysis. You have a choice. Judge yesterday or learn from yesterday. Only one of those creates a better tomorrow. Another mistake people make is measuring the wrong thing. They measure perfection instead of consistency. They ask, "Did I complete everything perfectly?" A better question is, "Did I keep moving?" Imagine 2 people. The first works perfectly for 10 days, then quits for 3 months. The second works steadily, imperfectly, for an entire year. Who changes more? The answer is obvious. Consistency always defeats intensity. Not because consistency is exciting, because consistency compounds. Every ordinary day matters. Not because it transforms your life immediately, because it becomes part of a larger pattern. Patterns become habits. Habits become character. Character becomes destiny. That is how transformation actually works. Quietly, gradually, almost invisibly, until one day everyone calls you disciplined. They didn't see the ordinary days, only the extraordinary result. Remember the bamboo tree. For years, almost nothing appears above the ground. Then suddenly it grows at an astonishing rate. People think the growth happened overnight. It didn't. The roots were developing long before anyone noticed. Your discipline works the same way. Some days you will wonder if anything is changing. Keep going. Some weeks you will feel discouraged. Keep going. Some months will seem ordinary. Keep going. Progress is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. That's the key. There is another lesson hidden inside discipline. Discipline evolves. The habits that served you last year may not serve you next year. Life changes. Your responsibilities change. Your priorities change. A new career, a new family, a new challenge. Growth requires adjustment. Review is not proof that your system failed. Review is proof that you are paying attention. Imagine a sailor crossing the ocean. Does the sailor point the ship in one direction and never touch the wheel again? Impossible. The wind changes, the waves change, the current changes. The destination remains the same. The course is adjusted constantly. Your life deserves the same wisdom. Keep the destination, adjust the path. Never confuse flexibility with weakness. Rigid people often break. Adaptable people endure. You have a choice. Hold tightly to your values. Hold loosely to your methods. If one routine stops working, build another. If one schedule becomes impossible, create a new one. If one habit disappears, replace it before excuses replace it for you. The goal is not to preserve the routine. The goal is to preserve the identity of someone who keeps moving forward, someone who returns, someone who learns, someone who refuses to let temporary setbacks become permanent conclusions. That identity will carry you through every season of your life. There will come a day when you look back at the person you used to be, the person who waited, the person who doubted, the person who quit too easily. You may hardly recognize them, not because one dramatic event changed everything, but because hundreds of ordinary decisions quietly reshaped your character, one day at a time, one promise at a time, one return at a time. That is the true meaning of discipline. Not never falling, always rising. Carry this sentence with you for the rest of your life. You never fail by starting again. Say it after every setback. Say it after every disappointment. Say it whenever your mind tells you that you have fallen too far behind, because the moment you begin again, you are no longer defeated. You are moving, and as long as you keep moving, your story is still being written. You have now learned that discipline is not a destination, but a lifelong practice of returning to what matters. The journey does not end here. It begins each morning, with every choice you make after these words fade into silence. Before you leave, don't try to apply everything you heard today. Just choose one idea. Put it into action before the day ends, and whenever you feel yourself slipping back into old habits, come back to this video as a reminder of the person you're becoming.